All right, it's time we got started this evening. We are, does everybody have their books with them? If not, we've got some more back there. We're going to review. We started the section on covetousness or greed on Sunday. Tonight we'll do a little bit of reviewing, and then we will get into the questions. The questions are actually pretty good this week. So I think that's what we'll do. First, if you would, turn to Ecclesiastes. It's a several verse reading, but I think it's worthwhile. Ecclesiastes 5. Probably down through verse 15. So it's a little bit lengthy, but I think it's worth it. Ecclesiastes 5. Verse 10, he who loves silver will not be satisfied with silver, nor he who loves abundance with increase. This also is vanity. When goods increase, they increase who eat them. So what profit have the owners except to see them with their eyes? The sleep of a laboring man is sweet, whether he eats little or much. But the abundance of the rich will not permit him to sleep. There is a severe evil which I have seen under the sun. Riches kept for their owner to his hurt, but those riches perish through misfortune. When he begets a son, there's nothing in his hand. As he came from his mother's womb, naked shall he return, to go as he came. And he shall take nothing from his labor, which he may carry away in his hand. And this also is a severe evil. I want to do a couple more verses. Severe, just exactly as he came, so shall he go. And what profit has he who has labored for the wind? All his days he also eats in darkness, and he has much sorrow and sickness and anger. The wise writer here, Ecclesiastes, talks about, in a lot of cases, the vanity of things, the vanity of life. What's some of the highlights out of those verses did you get out of that? Any lesson out of that? It's profound, but yet it's not difficult to understand. Peggy?
It's a sickening tragedy.
Say that just one more time.
Sickening tragedy.
A sickening tragedy. Just a little bit more help on that.
Because it is in vain and it's tragic for the person that thinks they need all these things and have all these things, and it's tragic. They don't lose it all.
Peggy said it's tragic, and she amplified on that, and it was 100% correct, that you do all these things, and yet you leave it. You leave it at the end. So what was the point? Of course, we know what the Ecclesiastes writer said in the last chapter. Gary, that's good.
To me, verse 17 makes me believe that that person knows his problem. It says, throughout his life, he also eats in darkness with great vexation, sickness, and anger. So even having all those things, he's not only not satisfied, he's frustrated and angry about it. Now, I would ask you in the class, as you get older, doesn't this become much more clear in your life than it did when you read it when you were 30?
Yeah. Let me throw that out to the class, but I've been thinking about that this week. Gary said, as we get older, do these things become a little more clear to you? Does your focus change somewhat? Simply yes. In what ways? We work our whole life. We get educated. We go to school. We learn a trade. We get good at that. We make good money, and you have children and all these things, and you're focused trying to keep your head above water in a lot of cases. But then as you get older, your focus really starts pertaining, I think, more and more to the frailty of our lives. I've seen that this week with my sister. And we've all seen it with our parents or whatever. Tom?
You have the burden of all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You told me.
It can be a burden. Is there anything wrong with stuff? Is there anything wrong with having a nice house, a nicer car? Is anything wrong with that? No, it's not. It's really not. Enjoy the fruits of your labors. However, it can become such when we lose our focus. And as Paul said, it becomes it becomes an idol to us. It becomes between us and God. Whatever that idol happens to be, it can become between us and God. When I was in my mid-30s, I tell my grandkids that, and they go, "You were in your mid-30s?" We lived in Elizabethtown, Kentucky, and at the church there was a man. His name was J.C. I won't give you his last name. He's dead now, but anyway, J.C. He lived in a 2-room shack. In one of the rooms, he had a wire. Kurt, being an electrician, would have not liked that. A wire that came down, and it had a bald bulb right there. That's all he had. And he was a tree trimmer. That's what he did for a living. And then he would sell the firewood in the wintertime, because a lot of people had fireplaces and stoves in their houses even then. And so that's how he made his living. He was a Christian. He had no teeth, never had a wife, and he was one of the backbones of that church. J.C. He could climb up a tree like a monkey, literally. He was that good in a tall tree. Well, one day he was up in a tree and fell probably 30 feet, they estimated, and broke his back. So he survived that, with rods in his back and rods in his legs and all of that. Of course, he could never climb any trees again and make a living. So the church there, I never saw him in a bad mood. He was always smiling, even with no teeth. When he survived that and came back to church, he was still a backbone. We all helped him with his living. Instead of him delivering wood to us, we delivered wood to him to burn it in his stove. J.C. died. Would you trade places with him today? Let me back up. How did the world view J.C. Miller? Well, J.C. Miller, he's dead. How did the world view J.C.? The world. Failure? Yes. Yes, he was, from the world's perspective. What little bit he had, he was always willing to share. And what's the opposite of covetousness? We talked about that on Sunday. Remember? Pardon? Generosity, yes, for sure. For sure. I bring up that example just to illustrate the point of what Peggy was talking about there and what Gary was talking about. That our focus changes. We're not going to take any of it with us. And even when you don't have very much, like a J.C. Miller, you can still be a faithful Christian and do your job of encouraging and even helping people what little bit you had. Any thoughts on that? I mean, was thinking about him today, and I just got all emotional about him. The kids would remember him. They were smaller, but they'd remember him. Good man. When you compare J.C. Miller to this picture of vanity and emptiness and even anger, sorrow, sickness, the greedy man, we've all seen them. Are they generally a happy people? I've never seen one. Walk around with a long face, checking their bank account. They're not happy people generally. It's never enough. It's never enough, and that's what he said. He who loves silver, Johnny Ray, in verse 10 said, will not be satisfied with silver, because what does he want? Wants more silver. And he who loves abundance will only want to increase that abundance. So, message for you and me. Now, we're not, generally speaking, we're not that kind of guy right there. But we're generally not J.C. Miller either, and him struggling his whole life for the prize at the end, which I have no doubt he's there. Any lessons for you and me? Lots of lessons, actually, but anyway. Nick?
Sometimes we can believe that our well-being is determined by what's outside, what's external, and maybe the status that we have, or the things that we have. But the example that you mentioned with JC shows that sometimes it's more internal in the mindset that we have. If we learn to have contentment instead of covetousness and generosity instead of greed, then we'll find that we can actually be happy even if we don't have everything in the world has to offer.
Did Paul say things like that? He said, whatever state I'm in, I've learned to be content. Yes, for sure. For sure. If someone asks you, what is life about? What is your life about? What is my life about? What's life about? How would you describe that? Well, how would the world describe it? Let's do that, the hard one, or the easy one first. How would the world describe, what is your life about? What would be some of the things the world might say? My life is about, fill in the blank. Say again, Peggy? Yeah, how much money do you have? I bet I got more than he does. That's how they think. Joan?
I was just gonna say, a lot of, especially young people, they're just thinking, well, I have to work to live. So I'm going, maybe they're going to school, they've got a job, and they have to pay all their debts. It's,
Is that wrong?
that's their life.
That's not wrong.
Oh, it's not wrong.
Yeah, but that is the focus of their life, at least right now. I see your point. No, that's actually a good point. Nicole?
It's also about being happy
Being happy.
and not missing out.
But what if you're not happy? What if you're not happy? We got to get happy. And if you're not happy, oftentimes, how do we view that? I must be doing something wrong. I think one of the, I love our founding fathers. They were way above their time. I think even providential that they came along when they did. But life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The last phrase is not a biblical phrase. And quite often, if we're not happy, and we've seemingly got everything that we would want or ever need, why are you not happy? The world has a different focus, like we talked about on Sunday. He who dies with the most toys wins, they say. We have to keep up with the Joneses. It's not a competition, our lives. But I'm afraid too often that it can become that. So what's our life about? What should be our focus? Now, I know I'm talking to mostly Christians here. I get that too. How would you characterize what our life is about? On page 56, hopefully you read it, the writer says, life is about being a person of real character, enjoying family and friends, and having fellowship with God. Does that sort of capsulize, in a nutshell, kind of what we're about? In a lot of ways, it is. It is. What did Jesus say about serving two masters? Can you do it? Why? Jesus said. Why? He even tells us why. Else you will love the one and you'll hate the other, and vice versa. You can't serve two masters. We try sometimes. And there's our some cases anger, in some cases just not happy, and so on. So therefore, life must just be a bowl of cherries. Raise your hand if you agree with that. Oh, that's right, I don't see any hands. It's not. God never promised us that. There are health concerns, health issues, there are accidents, there are all these things. And as Joan said, there's a living, we have to make a living. That is, there's nothing wrong with that. You have to go to school to get certain all that's healthy. Unless it becomes your idol. And you can fill in the blank there, maybe what's in your life or what's in my life. I've thought about these things. Anybody? Anything? Joan, and then Jan.
So, the fictional character that really makes me think of, that we all know, his name is Scrooge.
Scrooge?
And that verse 17, being in the dark, if you ever watch that movie again, that's exactly what he does. He goes home to an empty house, sits in the dark with one candle, eating his food. He's so sad he doesn't even realize it. And yet he's wealthy.
The Christmas story, Ebenezer Scrooge. On paper, he had it all, didn't he? In reality, what did he have? A miserable existence. Yeah, that's good, actually. Jan?
Like you talked about it earlier, setting your mind on things above. If you do that, it changes your whole perspective for everything.
How do we set no, it's perfect. How do we set our mind on things above? It's not a trick question. Anybody can jump in here, but you're so correct.
The thing about God and what He would want you to do in situations, how He would want you to view things and try to view things the same way He created them.
That takes effort, doesn't it? Jan said we need to develop a mindset, and we'll talk about maybe how we get there. Develop a mindset of, remember the kids were, I think, in high school at the time also maybe, but WWJD, you remember the bracelets? Well, what would Jesus do? That concept is not a bad concept. When we're in it, I'm coming, Lisa. What would Jesus do? What would God have me to do? And as Gary pointed out, I think not necessarily when you get older. Some old people don't have that focus either, but you're beginning to see the sunset. And you're heading toward it fairly quickly. It can change your focus fairly dramatically. Lisa.
So I was thinking, the irony is, God has given us benefit. We have a relationship with Him, and we can feel full. But just like Adam and Eve, they got curious, they were tempted, they said, hey, this might be better, and they rejected God, as we do.
Temptation, we've talked about that a couple of classes ago, very, very strong. And a lot of these things, God, it's inherent with us. We have to manage those things, but they can fly out of control. Yes. Those have had children before, small, now maybe grown, but still, we remember. When they get down in the floor, and they had a lot of toys in the floor. And of course, one child's older than the other one by a year or 2 or 3 or 4, whatever. And the littlest one doesn't understand everything yet. So they'd be playing with toys, and they would try to get as many toys over in front of them as they could. And then one child would grab a toy, and then what would the other one try to do? I'm taking that, they don't say anything, but they take that toy. We slap their hands. You know, they got to learn, but they're children. They have to learn. As we get older, sometimes we may not be playing with toys like that, so to speak, but we can demonstrate that kind of pettiness. Do you think that's so, or is that just me? I think so. Thought I saw another hand. Anyone? Okay, now feel free to raise your hand. Page 58. Page 58. The questions. Question number 2. We've talked about the meaning of covetousness or greediness, and so we won't belabor that. But name some of the sins listed alongside covetousness or greediness, whatever you like, in the New Testament. Hint, 1 Corinthians 6. Sometimes we think, well, you know, at least I'm not a murderer, or I'm not you can fill in the blank here. I'm not a rapist, not a fornicator, not an adulterer, not all these things. Good. Good thing you're not. What's mixed in there? In that list? Covetousness. And how does Paul end that in the last verse or 2 of that context? Will not inherit the kingdom of God. Are you telling me, Paul, that being greedy, being covetous, ness will keep us out of heaven like these major sins? What's the answer? It's rhetorical. Yes, it will. Yes, it will. That's how serious this is. So whether it's our time, our generosity, all the things that Christians ought to be doing, if we're not doing them and we're coveting for us, 1 Corinthians 6 says we might not make it. It's a serious thing. I didn't say it was easy to overcome it. I just said that it can keep us out of heaven. Anything on that? Okay. Number 3. What warning did Jesus give regarding the sins from within a man? key words from within a man in Mark 7. And this goes back to one of Jan's ideas. What did Jesus say there? Put it to death. Put it to death. That's heavy. When you find yourself with these things, Jesus said, put it to death with all the, if I remember right, all the passions and all the sins that goes along with it. You have to put it to death. You have to change the way we think, change the way we focus, and so on. Number 4, why does God consider covetousness to be idolatry? Now, we've touched on this, but so someone help me out. Why does God consider covetousness as idolatry? Michelle?
It discounts God.
It discounts God? In what way?
You're so focused on what you want that you're not thinking about God.
You're not thinking about God. Is he number one in your life?
No.
He's really not, he said. Idolatry. We've touched on a couple of things already. What can become an idol in our life that could technically fall under the category of covetousness? We've touched on a few of them, but give me some more. Pardon? Sports could be. Yes. Yes. Takes our time away. What we could be using for spiritual things. Okay, sports. Yeah. What else? Rick?
Sometimes people idolize other people, whether they're an actor, actress, a politician, or successful business person. They idolize.
Rick said, for those in the back, that it could be people. It could be a person, personality. It could be sports. It could be, an actor, whatever. That we idolize. Caitlin? Hobbies in general. Do you have a couple in mind?
Sometimes it's just like your free time, like what you're doing with it.
Free time. Now, some in here would be going, this free time you speak of, what is that again? We all have free time. We can beat ourselves with chains and say how hard we work, and but we all have free time. How do we use it? Caitlin said. Yes. Yes. Anything else? Gary?
Caitlin's point, we live in an area where there's a golf course. And Sunday morning, that golf course, if it's not too hot, it's loaded up.
It's loaded up. Our neighborhood too. Can family, be careful now, Mitch. Can family become an idol to us? And if so, how? Now, I'm going to do my high school teacher thing now. I'm not speaking anymore until I hear some things. Thank you, John.
I've talked to a few members of the church who have missed on Sunday to be with their family because they were doing something with their family. And I emphasized, what you do is you're missing out on the Lord's Supper, which is the command of a Christian, and meeting with a brother. And so that emphasized that they're putting their family before God and before Jesus when they do that.
John said, it's a valid point. Sometimes we have people come into town and they say, I won't be there on Sunday. I've got family coming in from out of town. Careful. What did you put above God and worshiping Him and remembering His Son? It's a tough one. I think it's true. It's really good. Janelle?
I was gonna say putting priority above God,
Yeah.
basically the same thing.
Yeah.
Putting anything precedence.
We've had people coming in from out of town. We lived in 8 different states, so we've had people coming in all the time, particularly when we work more. But you know what we did? We just said, we leave at 8 o'clock. We'd like for you to go with us. And a lot of times they would, sometimes not. We'd like for you to go with us. If not, we'll be home in time. We'll bring home some chicken or something. We'll have lunch. But we're going to church services. Not one time and this has happened multiple times, ever say, what's wrong with y'all? Nobody ever said that. May not have understood it. But those are the kind of things you have to do. Otherwise, you are putting family above God. Sometimes you got to dig deep on some of these things. Gary, and then I'll come to you, Nick.
Just real quick, a lot of times people will be so stuck on what a parent's religion and beliefs are, teach them the truth, and when they start getting that thought in their head, oh no, my mom and dad are not going to be right, and they're not. A lot of people get stuck in it. My mom was just livid when I was with
Yes?
Church of Christ.
Yeah. What did Jesus say about in Luke, Luke 14 or 15, 15 I think. What did he say about that? He who loves father and mother more than me is not what? Worthy of me. He wrote that, I did. And you have to count the cost. Sometimes, like in Gary's case and others, your family cut you off, cut you out. Have you ever known that to happen? I think so. Yes, I think so. But it's a hard one because you love your family. But it can't interfere with what you know is right and what we need to put first. Jonathan.
I was gonna say that there's a brother we know that started a seminary to be a priest in the Catholic Church.
Okay.
He converted to God, and of course his family was against it. But I can tell you that decades later, his father became a Christian.
Yes. That's an excellent point, Jonathan. Jonathan says that while it's tough at first, it may go on for a while. My father was not a Christian. My mother was, and she never let us miss. But my dad was always belittling the Church of Christ, at least for the longest time. He later became a Christian before he died. But it took him over 40 years to watch my mother take us, and that she was serious about what she was doing. And the last few weeks of his life, he was converted. Because our family's not going to respect us much unless they see us, how serious this is with us. You think that's so? Absolutely. Nick, you had a comment.
Kind of similar to that point about how we can let our family determine what we believe instead of letting the Word of God. You can ask yourself, do you believe what you believe if you had a different family? And if the answer is yes, then it's worth considering. Are we letting the Word of God dictate our beliefs, or are we letting our family?
Okay, true. Got time for maybe one or two more questions. I thought this was a good one. Question number 6. How do we know covetousness can be overcome? And he uses 1 Corinthians 6, 9 through 11. How do we know that, and a great long list of terrible sins, which covetousness is one. What does he say at the end of that little blurb? And such were some of you. Such were some of you. It can be overcome with the right focus, back to what Jan was saying. Yes, such were some of you. Then he goes on to say, but you were reconciled, you were washed, and, so they became Christians. What virtue does the Bible offer for a cure for covetousness? Hebrews 13. I don't think we got time to read it, but hopefully you've read that. I got it circled here and highlighted. It's very important. Hebrews 13. Well, let me do it. Maybe I got time. Hebrews 13, verses 5 and 6. Let your conduct be without covetousness. Be content, notice. Be content with such things as you have. For he himself has said, I will never leave you nor forsake you, so that we may boldly say, the Lord's my helper. I will not fear what man can do to me. Now, we either believe that or we don't. God is our helper. He says, I've never left you, and I never will leave you. Now, there's two ways we either believe that's true or we don't. I'm not saying it's true. Do we believe that's true? Only each of us can answer that internally. Be content with what you have. Because why? Because I will never leave you. He didn't say you'll never have problems and issues and money problems and family problems. He didn't say that. But he said, you can get through it because I will never leave you.